Hello, welcome to this tutorial showing you how to apply to round 3 of the Carbon Farming and Land Restoration program. My name is Craig Saville. I'm a project officer in the carbon farming team here at DPIRD. I'll be taking you on a journey through the application form within the SmartyGrants platform, focusing on the typical functions you'll be using to submit your application. SmartyGrants is a third-party grant management platform regularly used by government and the private sector alike. It allows us to administer grants while offering powerful reporting functions and the oversight necessary for providing financial assistance. In these videos, I'm aiming to take the mystique out of SmartyGrants, guiding you step by step through the form, hopefully showing that it is fairly approachable. Some fields in the application form are self-explanatory. I'll be skipping over these to save some time. There are links to other documents and links to websites peppered throughout the application form. Use these as necessary. We've also prepared a more detailed How to Apply guide that gives deeper guidance on how to approach the content of these sections. I'd urge you to take a look at this also. On screen is the best email address to get in contact with us, carbonfarming@dpird.wa.gov.au. If there's one takeaway from this tutorial, it is that our team is ready to support you on your journey. Please reach out if needed. So if you've ended up here, you probably have an idea of what we're trying to achieve. In the Carbon Farming and Land Restoration program, CF-LRP, our program aims to realise agriculture's potential to sequester carbon in the landscape, generate carbon credits, and grow WA's carbon farming industry. Projects selected will deliver environmental, economic and social co-benefits and contribute to the long-term sustainability of the farming industry. This program provides support through Agreements for Financial Assistance, AFAs, for new vegetation and soil carbon farming projects in the Southwest Land Division. The aim is to demonstrate what's possible while stimulating knowledge sharing, create real value and, of course, restore the land. To date, over $3.8 million has been provided supporting 18 projects. Note that our team regularly runs workshops on carbon farming. We have some coming up to support the launch of the Carbon Farming Land Restoration Program Round 3. Please head to our website to find out more and to register for one in your area. The first QR code on screen right now will take you to that page. Let's start by logging into SmartyGrants. There is a link through DPIRD's website, or point your smartphone camera at the middle QR code on screen and hit the link that pops up on your phone screen, or you can type this into your browser. First-time users should register using this link on the right. Typical username, organisation, email and password creation process. Once you've done that, hit register. Then go to your email address that you used to register. You should have received an email from service@smartygrants.com.au and then click the first link in that email. If you have used SmartyGrants before, perhaps as a voucher applicant under the Carbon for Farmers voucher program, you can log in using the email and password that you set up previously. If you have forgotten or misplaced your previous password, go through the password reset process by clicking on the Forgotten Your Password link here. You will need to go to your email after hitting the password reset button. Follow the instructions from SmartyGrants to reset your password. If you are having login or further technical issues with SmartyGrants, unfortunately DPIRD employees do not have access to your login details and we cannot provide much assistance. You should reach out directly to SmartyGrants for this assistance using the email address service@smartygrants.com.au, or you can phone them during East Coast hours 8 AM to 6 PM on 03 9320 6888. So for now, let's log in. Because I've already begun a test submission, I'm going to go up here to this button, My Submissions. And you can see that I've created a test submission for a fake alpaca milk farm and a regeneration project on that farm. So click that link. Once again, click the ACCU Plus Round 3 application button and then we are in. So there are a couple of things I'd like to go through in preparation before you start your application form. So on screen now, you can see a few acronyms that we commonly use within our program. I'll just go through each of these quite quickly. So we have CF-LRP, which is the Carbon Farming and Land Restoration Program. We have the RBDC, which is the Rural Business Development Corporation. The Clean Energy Regulator, CER. AFAs are Agreements for Financial Assistance. ACCUs are Australian Carbon Credit Units. And then SOC is Soil Organic Carbon. Hopefully I don't throw too many more in there as we go through. So a couple of other notes. In terms of professional support, you will most likely have a carbon service provider, consultant, or professional working in the background to support your application. Note that they are able to assist you with completing your application form. However, you, as the applicant, take full responsibility for the accuracy of the information and for the funding request being made. In terms of aggregated projects, if you are considering submitting an application that includes other proponents, effectively combining smaller projects into one large project, please reach out to the carbon farming team to discuss your options and for some additional guidance. For Aboriginal and First Nations proponents, if you are one of these proponents or representing an Aboriginal organisation, we'd also encourage you to reach out to DPIRD's Aboriginal Economic Development Team prior to submitting your application. That email address is aed@dpird.wa.gov.au. And lastly, in this section, eligible interest holder consent, or EIH. Properties may sometimes have conditions upon them where certain stakeholders are required to provide their consent before a project can be registered. A couple of examples may be a bank holding the mortgage on the property, or perhaps First Nations cultural restrictions on use of the land. We recommend you have researched what, if any, EIH consent is required for your land, and seek this out prior to starting your application. In keeping with the preparation theme, I note that there are some mandatory documents required for your submission. I suggest you have these ready prior to beginning your application. These are the project site plan or plans, a project work plan, a land management strategy for soil projects, species list for seed and or seedling orders for vegetation projects, and also your ACCU modelling for forward estimates. Some documents that you may require based on your choices within the application form, we'll call them conditional documents, would be the business structure diagram if you are a trustee, and a letter from the landowner if you as the applicant are not the landowner. Non-mandatory documents that may be useful: third-party and in-kind commitment evidence for your budget, evidence of previous expenditure, quotations to support your budget items, other information such as research articles, papers to support your claims or proposed activities. These can be uploaded into an upload section found at the bottom of each method section. Please ensure that they are directly relevant to your project. And last but not least is a forest management plan that might be useful. Some important preliminary statements. So successful recipients must be able to enter into an agreement for financial assistance, AFA, and register as the project proponent with the Clean Energy Regulator. Ensure that you have read and understood the Round 3 program guidelines. Ensure that you're eligible to submit an application as per the criteria in the program guidelines. That you will provide financial and other information on request in regards to your business, and that you have not yet started your on-ground project activities. In other notes, you'll see the upload button in various places. This is fairly straightforward. Next to it, you may see the Select Stored File button, which will allow you to reuse documents you have previously stored within SmartyGrants. I don't think this one will use very often. It's the Upload File button that will be used. Note that there is also an opportunity to download a preview of the application form. It might be a little useful, however, it's not perfect as the conditional elements of this form are not visible, nor are the drop-down menu items. And my last recommendation before you begin is give yourself plenty of time, start early, and as always, reach out if you need any assistance. So now, let's get started on the application form itself. Just a quick overview of what you see here. So on the left, I'll call this the left-hand sidebar with all of the different application sections. Up here we've got Save Progress, Save and Close, and then the Next Page button. So let's go through the form page by page, and I'll try and skip over bits that are pretty obvious. So let's roll down here. This is the application form to start the process. We start with a privacy statement. Click yes or no. Just click these little buttons here. And then remember, as you go, you've got to click yes or no here. You've got to hit Save Progress button at the top center or bottom center of the page. I recommend doing that as you finish each section off. And then go to the next page. And you'll see here that on the sidebar, we've now gone to section 2, applicant details. So you'll need to complete all fields marked with a red asterisk. They're mandatory fields, fairly straightforward. You'll need your company details on hand for a number of these fields in this form. So just go through and add your details as the applicant or the proponent. Your residential address, not necessarily the same address as where your project will be undertaken. So here you can see that I've said no because my project address will be different to my residential address. So then we have a question around the entity name. So you put your entity name in there. You may have a trading name that's more of a well-known or business name as opposed to the ABN entity name. You can put your ABN in there and hit lookup. I've just put an example one in here. If you're an Indigenous corporation, add your ICN. Now this question here, is the applicant applying as the trustee of a trust? If you hit no, you can just keep going through the form. If you answer yes to this question, you'll see that this section on trust structure opens up here. There's an option to upload a file showing a diagram of your trust structure, also known as family tree. So prepare your document, save it in an easy to access location on your desktop, probably with all of your other CF-LRP round 3 documents, and then hit the upload new file button, follow the standard upload procedure. So then we move into the applicant financials. So here we see this acronym RBDC, that's the Rural Business Development Corporation. They are the arm that administers the funding for this project, for these projects. Do you agree to provide financial information for the purpose of assessing your application, yes or no? This question here on landholder details. If you answer no to this question, let's do that, then a further window opens up with the business arrangements with the landholder. Complete this section. You'll have to upload evidence of that. And then move down the page. I'm going to click yes, just for simplicity's sake. And if you answer yes to the question, is this an aggregated project? Please get in touch with the team at carbonfarming@dperd.wa.gov.au to discuss. Then finally, if you answer yes to is the project land owned or controlled by an Aboriginal person or group, you'll see a new section open up where we'd ask you to describe the arrangement with that Aboriginal person or group. Hit Save Progress. So now we move into the project details screen, section 3. So here you'll need to provide a project name. Note that it is important that this project name must match what you will be registering with the Clean Energy Regulator. I've just entered in some slightly humorous words because these are mandatory fields. So let's move down. For project summary, try to create a project bio, or some might say an elevator pitch, a short description, something that could be easily adapted for announcements or social media statements or department media statements. Then moving down, describe your reasons or motivations for undertaking the project and what you hope to achieve. You can see I've written some words. You'll have to come up with your own to try and sell your motivations for your project. With the Clean Energy Regulator question, it's important to note that if an application registration has been submitted or the project is registered but not yet commenced, note that no funding will be released until registration is complete. Input your answer for the reason for applying for funding. And then we move to the project location section. So there's a fair bit going on here. Let's go through it. So note that on the right, you'll see this maximize button. I'm going to hit that. By hitting that, what you'll do is you'll give yourself some more screen space to play with. And so you would enter the project address, first name, last name of the landholder, if not the applicant, contact number, email address. These are also if not the applicant. And then here is the encumbrances, memorials, caveats question. You need to disclose part of these as part of the CER registration process. And then if you have further project locations, you would hit this plus or the add more button down here. Let's try that. And what will happen is you'll open up a new project location on top. And if I scroll down, you'll see the first one is there. If you've done that by error or you realized you're not going to add a second property address, hit the minus button and that one will disappear. Okay, hit minimize. We'll scroll back down to where we were. For property size, this refers to the total property size where the project will be implemented, not just the area where the project will be. And then the current land use question, you can see the hint down here. By the way, many questions have these hints underneath in small text. Use those to help you complete the question, and I've just entered something in here because it is a mandatory question. For regulatory approvals, if you hit yes to the question, are approvals needed for this project? Let's try that. You'll see that an approval status field box opens up. Please add the details here for these approvals and then make sure that you mark the status from this drop-down menu here, obtained, in progress, not started. And you can also add more lines, more rows if you need to. So I'm going to go back here and click no. I'm going to hit save progress and we'll go to the next page. So the next page here, the next section, is the ACCU scheme method. So I'd start here by saying that please familiarize yourself and consult with your carbon services professional to determine which ACCU scheme method or methods that you'll be undertaking. You can refer to the CF-LRP Round 3 program guidelines and the Clean Energy Regulator website for details on each. Note that for each one that you choose, you can select more than one. A new page will open up for each of those methods, each with its own set of questions. And so for ease of, we're going to spend a bit of time in section 5, which is the estimating SOC sequestration. I note for these method sections, if you have completed a land management strategy, feasibility study, etc., you may have this information at hand and can help you with your responses. So moving down the form, start with your soil health issues that you are trying to address. Mandatory question, you need to put something in there. Then we move down to the soil carbon project activities. Use the drop-down menus to select the eligible activities under this Clean Energy Regulator method. You'll be required to describe how each activity differs to your current practice and then what change you would want to see by implementing this new practice. And you can maximize the screen, as we saw before. You can add extra rows by hitting the plus sign. You can delete rows if you don't need them. And in here you can add your additional descriptions. Hit minimize to go out. Let's move back down to where we were. Okay, in this section, estimating soil carbon sequestration. You'll be required to provide the current estimated SOC level. You can provide reports, evidence to support this, but these are not mandatory uploads. Then moving down, please name which soil carbon calculator or software that you've used to calculate this. Next, key question. You'll be required to provide your anticipated new soil organic carbon as a percentage. And then also, which modelling did you use to determine the change in SOC, and which tool did you use? Next, whether you'll be using spectroscopy or not, and why this technology. You can see some hints below there that may help you with that. And then we ask, what is the intended depth of the soil sampling baseline in meters? And a question about why you've chosen to sample at this depth. And then moving further down the page, if you have evidence to support these, for example, activities or evidence to support the projected increase in SOC, please provide this documentation to support using the upload button. And you'll see here this select stored file button, which I mentioned earlier. Okay. The next few fields that you're seeing are fairly common through all of the methods in the application form. So you'll see these again in a moment, but we start with the project site plan. So this is a mandatory upload. So we'll need a site map at reasonable scale on aerial imagery depicting where the on-ground activities will happen. Further guidance is given in the How to Apply guide. Moving through to site preparation and establishment, describe your site prep techniques, and for pasture establishment projects, please list the species that you will be using. Pests and weeds, describe known and anticipated pests and weeds, and then suitable control measures. Carbon estimation areas, or CEAs. A CEA is the area of land where the activities will be happening. Note that these are mandatory fields, so ensure that the CEAs are numbered and align with information in this section. So moving to land management. Submitting an LMS or land management strategy is a requirement as part of the registration process with the CER and for applying to this program. Click yes and upload the document. For more information on land management strategies, go to the CER website. Almost there with this section. For a work plan, you'll be required to upload a document here. Please see the How to Apply guide for more details, but in essence, we have a simple Excel-based document that you can download from our website and complete. This will help communicate timelines for project activities. There is a link right here for you to go and download that. Feel free to use your own software if you wish. And then finishing off the page is the optional uploads section. So please include any further information that supports your project. Make sure that it's relevant. For example, research articles and papers to support your claims or your proposed activities. I reiterate, as usual, ensure that they are directly relevant to your project. Save progress. Next page. So let's talk about vegetation methods. In the application form, we'll go back into the ACCU scheme method page, and you can see that there are 3 separate vegetation methods under the CF-LRP that could be utilized. The first is the reforestation method, the second is the plantation forestry method, and the third is the new farm forestry method. Further info can be found on these methods in the agroforestry fact sheet, and I'll quickly bring up a link to that on screen. It's this QR code here. You can use your phone to access that QR code. So let's go into reforestation. You can see a link here to go and grab more details if you wish, but we'll start going through the application form. Another link here, by the way. Project site plan. So this is a mandatory upload. We'll need a site map at reasonable scale on aerial imagery depicting where the on-ground activities will happen. Numbering CEAs within the site plan will add clarity to your application, and further guidance on how to do this is given in the How to Apply guide. In site preparation techniques, choose from some or all of the options here, or select Other and describe it. Then further down, select whether you'll be using a belt plantings, block plantings, or a combination of both. Pests and weeds, select which pests you need to account for, and then the suitable control measures in this box here, mandatory fields, and you can add more rows if needed. Moving down, we move into the establishment method and species list. So once again, you'd select all that apply of the methods of establishment, explain your reasoning for these, and then you have a mandatory upload of the species list for seedlings and or your seed orders. Moving into carbon estimation areas, CEAs, and planting density. So the CEA is the area of land where the activities are happening, and note that these are mandatory fields. Ensure the CEAs are numbered and align with the information in the planting density section. CEA number, area, then over here, please input the number of seedlings and or the kilograms of seed to be used in the CEA. This is to meet the stem density requirements as per the CER method requirements. You can add more rows if needed. Pretty straightforward sections here. Protection of plantings. Select all that apply or your own by using the other field. Fencing. Tick a box, yes or no, and provide the required type and quantity of fencing needed. And you can see a hint there to help you. Feel free to add more lines. Fire mitigation, same thing. Tick a box of the activities that will be implemented and add further details. And then we move into the work plan. So you will be required to upload a document here. As mentioned previously, a download for the work plan template is available to you. This link here takes you there. Or you can create your own using your own software. And at the very bottom of the page, we have the optional upload section. So this is where you would add your relevant supporting documentation, for example, research articles, papers to support your claims or proposed activities. As usual, ensure they are directly relevant to your project. We'll hit Save Progress, and you'll move to the next page. A few notes on the other two forestry plantation methods. So let's move through to the first of those by clicking Next Page. Much of the fields are the same as for the reforestation method, with a couple of differences. So for section 7, Plantation Forestry, you will need a Forest Management Plan, or FMP, for when you are submitting your first credit report, which can be any time between 6 months to 5 years after you've registered with the CER. So you can upload it here if you have that. And the rest of the sections are the same as for the reforestation. So let's slowly move through so you can just see they're all the same. We'll move to the next page, which is the new farm forestry method. So in here, the only major difference is in the first, at the top of the page, you need to select the approach that you'll be using. So of these two, the establishment of a permanent planting or the establishment of a new farm forestry plantation. And then you'll be able to upload your documents in here. All other sections are identical to the reforestation method, as you can see as I slowly scroll down through the page. So we are now in section 9, the co-benefits portion of the application form. By now you're probably becoming familiar with how the form is structured. I'll start by saying that co-benefits are an important component of the CF-LRP, and so applicants are strongly encouraged to carefully consider the monitoring and indicator information that your project has proposed. You can find more assistance by hitting this link to the co-benefit standard. So first of all, tick the boxes next to the co-benefits that you expect your project to deliver, noting that these are benefits beyond carbon sequestration. And for each one that you tick, new sections will open up below based on the co-benefits you select. I note that soil organic carbon sequestration method projects can only claim these 3 co-benefits: agricultural productivity, soil health, and Aboriginal economic and cultural opportunities. While vegetation method projects may be able to claim all 5 co-benefits. So in this example, I'll just tick 1, agricultural productivity. And you move down and you can select from the drop-down menus here in this table. Once again, you can maximize to give yourself a bit more space, and you can select one of each of these activities or just one of them if you wish. So you can hit negative on that, subtract. And then you'll be asked in the activity field to the right to detail what that activity entails. Note that innovative and/or materially different activities to those currently being undertaken can contribute to a strong application. And I've just written activity 1 in there because this is a mandatory field. In the field, what will you measure? Write a description of the data that will be gathered to support this activity. You can see that there's a hint above that. And then over here in the field, how will you monitor and report on this indicator of change? Write about the methods used to gather this data and the way that it will be transformed into richer information to show that the co-benefit has occurred. Another way to view this could be, how will you show success in this activity? And you can see there I've written monitoring, information, and indicators. Below that, upload attachments that are appropriate and directly relatable to your project. Save progress, clears all the warnings that you might see and locks that work in. And then repeat this for the other co-benefits that apply to your project and that you can support with evidence. So we now reach a quite hefty and important section of the application form, the budget. I note that it's important to work out your budget in advance. In the application form, attaching quotations will help ensure the budget is appropriate, has sound cost estimates, represents value for money, and shows the assessors that you've done due diligence on the services that you require. Please see the program guidelines and the How to Apply guide for more detailed explanations of how to approach this section. Each successful application is negotiated during the AFA, the Agreement for Financial Assistance, AFA process. And if you have uncertainties about your budget, you can contact our team during the opening period. A key part of this is that you will need to show how you will meet your 30% co-contribution. The budget pages for soil and for vegetation project methods are very similar, apart from the default drop-down lists on the budget items, which I'll show you soon. So in here, let's go down the page a little bit. You'll see the budget item screen. Once again, maximize gives you a bit more space to work with and you can see everything that you'll need to do. These are the drop-down menus. There's 10, 13 items in there, something like that. Select the one that's appropriate to you or select Other and add that description in there. What I've done here is just put some dummy figures in to show how it works. So this is the budget item. I've selected Project Management Services. I've put in a cost of $15,000. Feel free to upload evidence such as a quotation to support this, and then how much you will pay towards this amount. And just to show you how it works, I've put in just over 30%, so 33% of that total amount as put in by the applicant. And then when is the payment to be made? You can see here clearly that it's year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a little bit more expanded in year 6 to 8 and 9 to 10. On the right, you can write a comment, short explanation, or indicate it if this is coming from a third party. Second example, I've picked infill planting, $5,000. In this example, the applicant is not putting any funding towards that particular line item, but they've said that they'll incur that infill planting cost in year 3. And once again, you can add more rows for more budget items, and you probably will need to do that. And by the way, expenses can be allocated across multiple years, so you may have to do infill planting in year 5 again, for example. Then let's move down the page. This section here, the project cash button, auto-calculated, so it will pull in figures from the budget section above and put those here in those fields. And you can see here, in my very short example, I haven't quite reached the 30% minimum co-contribution amount yet, so I'll need to fill that out and make sure that I've done so. Moving down, for funding commitment from third parties, if you have entered a value here, you will need to upload evidence of that contribution to support this using the upload file button. If yes is chosen for other government funding, let's see what happens. A new table will open up for you to add the detail around that other government funding for this project. So it must be relevant for this project. Some examples of what that might be. So a Carbon for Farmers voucher program cash co-contribution would be an excellent example. And then other examples of prior expenditure, for example, down here, might be feasibility studies or engagement of consultants in relation to this project. For in-kind contributions, these are non-cash commitments by the applicant and/or their collaborators. So this can demonstrate non-cash contributions to the implementation and ongoing management of the project, such as machinery being lent or labour being contributed to the project. Just some quick examples here. I've selected planting and/or seeding by volunteers, estimated value, some details around what that is and where it's coming from, a description of the third party or the organisation, their relationship to the applicant, and then uploading documents as usual to support that. Hit Save Progress and lock in your work and move to the next page. Before we do that, essentially if you have a soil project or a vegetation project, you would do the same again for your soil project. And so you can see here on the sidebar, there's a budget for a soil project. Almost exactly the same except for the drop-down menu items in here in the budget items matrix. And just to finish off this section, I reiterate that if you have any queries about your budget, please reach out to the team during the opening period. More than happy to assist. So let's move into section 12, external funding, and after that we'll look at ACCUs. So on section 12, if yes is selected for previous government funding at any stage and not just in relation to this project, please provide details. So an example may be funding received from DPIRD through the Carbon for Farmers voucher program, in which case you might enter the details of your voucher number, the year you received it, and the dollar figure that you received. Another funding example might be from the Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions, the DBCA, in regards to something like the Aboriginal Ranger Program. So it's really any funding that your organisation has received at any time, not just in relation to this project. Move to the next page. So Australian Carbon Credit Units, or ACCUs. So within the application form, you'll be asked to estimate your project's ACCUs over the 25-year crediting period here and the 10-year agreement period here. Some people may nominate a 100-year permanence period for their project. However, for the sake of the application, you are only required to provide the ACCU estimation over the 25-year crediting period. For clarity, the ACCUs generated over the 10-year agreement period being the agreement with the RBDC, are included in the 25-year total amount, not in addition to. So as an example, I've just dropped in some simple figures here. In the first 10 years of my project, I'll generate 400 ACCUs. Then in the last 15 years, 600 ACCUs, taking the total project ACCU quantity to 1,000. Your ACCU estimations are critical to project feasibility, and your confidence in these estimates needs to be high. So we strongly recommend that you have professional assistance to help estimate and calculate these. So moving down here, the forward estimate of ACCUs. You'll be required to upload evidence of this forward estimate to support the figures. PDF files and JPEG files seem to work best here, and you can see I've tried uploading a couple of files into that section. Finally, in the field ACCUs offered to the Rural Business Development Corporation, the RBDC, yourself, and probably with the aid of your professional advisors, should calculate and offer a quantity of ACCUs that you believe is reasonable to return to the RBDC over the first 10-year period of your project. I've used 800 here as an example, noting that these figures will need to be your own and take into account your own circumstances and project calculations. We're reaching the end of the application form, and so I'll wrap up the last few sections into a short video. So section 14 is about project impact. Project impact is an important outcome of the CF-LRP in that it encourages the sharing of information and knowledge about carbon farming projects and their co-benefits. These outcomes will form a component of your funding agreement. In the project impact section, consider that the CF-LRP has goals of creating positive outcomes for WA's carbon farming sector as a whole. Identify opportunities here such as hosting field days, contribution to workshops, and media releases, newsletters, and social media to share your learnings and project successes. You might consider the potential impact on other farmers, the potential to bring out farming practice changes, adding value, credibility, and knowledge to further develop WA's carbon farming industry, and then demonstrated or intended engagement with industry, community, and the general public. So you'd write a description there. And then in the outreach and education table, let's maximize to give ourselves a bit more space. In here, you would describe your first outcome and how that would play out, and then the frequency of delivery. And then if you have other outcomes, such as field days, video reel of project results, you would put those in here. Feel free to add more rows if needed. Moving to the next page, into risk mitigation. So to consider the risks to your project being able to deliver carbon and the co-benefits, I'd suggest that you consult typical risk assessment matrices to assist you in completing this section. It's important that you consider key risks to your project and have thought about mitigation strategies for each. If you have completed a land management strategy, you may have already identified these risks, and feel free to use that information here. Pretty straightforward table. Let's maximize. So give your first risk a name and then assign a probability to it from unlikely to possible to likely to almost certain. And then in the impact selection, minor, moderate, or major, and then describe how you would mitigate that risk. and feel free to use extra lines if you need to. On the next page, this is where you would input your information around the professional service providers that you have used to assist you in your project. Pretty straightforward. Select the category of carbon service provider, their business name, your key contact, their email, a phone number, and the role that they have played within this project for you. And you can add more lines if you need to. And for the final page is the declaration. So assuming you are happy with your application, noting that you can go back to any of these sections and add further information or edit as you need to. But assuming you're happy, tick all these 5 boxes, enter your first and last names here. This declares that you are the applicant and you are submitting this work. You can save progress here and move to the next page, assuming everything else is complete, but you also still have a chance to go back through any of the pages you've worked on, edit or add information. The best way to move to the section you need to go to is to select it from this sidebar here and just click it. Any incomplete mandatory fields will have warnings as you scroll down through this page telling you where you need to navigate to. So if I try to go to the next page, it will tell me that I have some places where I haven't completed mandatory information. And if I scroll down, it will show me where I haven't got the correct information in there. So you're also able to download a PDF using this button of your completed or even incompleted application. And when you've finally satisfied the application form and that all mandatory fields are complete, I'm going to scroll right down to the bottom. As you can see, it's a summary of all the application pages. Download PDF is still there. If your form is complete, this button here will be available to you and you will be able to submit. This will close your form once you've done that. However, after that, if you wish to add or edit information in your form, it's not as straightforward as going back over this. Please get in touch with our team if you need to do that. We can reopen the form as long as your edit request is prior to the application closing date and time. And to start to move towards the end of this session, I will reiterate, please give yourself plenty of time to complete your application. In that way, if you do think of something, you can go back and ask us to come back into the form, open the form, and allow you to go back and edit something. So with that, I thank you for your attention, and we hope to see your application arrive soon. On screen are some contact details that you would have seen so far. So we have our website, the email address that you can send questions, queries to, and we have key subject matter experts in the team. So Julia's our key expert for reforestation projects. Andrew McCarthy, he's our expert on agroforestry and carbon estimation. Catherine Turnbull is the person to go to for soil carbon projects. And for general questions about the program and the round, please feel free to contact Kerry House, Program Manager. All the best. See you soon.